Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David and I'm your host. Today I want to talk with my Dream Team panel about our under 15 squad that played in this recent tournament or recent games they played. So we want to talk a little bit about them. I want to talk also to the young brothers, the young dreamers out there, the young dream team. Let them know we're not trying to discourage you. We want to motivate you to do better. If there's anything comes out negative, that's not our intention. We just want to make sure that we get our administrators' head in the right place, because there might be things we discuss, that suggestions we might put out there that you guys can use. So let me continue by introducing my dream team. To my right, Alvin Henderson. Welcome to the set, Alvin.
It's always a pleasure to be here, especially to discuss anything related to Trinidad football.
Next to Alvin, I have Larry Joseph. Welcome to the set, Larry.
Thanks again, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Larry. To my left, I've got Narada Wilson. Welcome to the set, Narada.
Always a pleasure to be here, Steve. We look forward to this discussion.
And we got Jefferson George. Jefferson, welcome to the set.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me, Steve.
Take a good look, viewers. This is Dream Team. So we would let's sit back and let's discuss the youth under 15 team that played in the recent tournament, if you call it that, and see what we can assist. And whether it's a negative or positive comment, we want to assist. And we don't want none of the dreamers, those young players, to feel any way, shape, or form, how about it, because we're just trying to help. Okay, guys, we all saw it. And I was disappointed with our performance, because I was expecting so much. Because you guys told me we had a team, under 15 team, for 2 years in training, and they are the future. I didn't see it. I didn't see it in formation. I didn't see it in talent or whatever. I think we have a lot of work to do. I'm going to open it up so you guys can have your word and to convince me that this is our future. So, Alvin?
Well, let me start, because I was there at the start of the selection of these young players 2 years ago, when we went around the country playing a 6-week period, where we played a series of games. Even over in Tobago, they were playing against a similar age group from the various regions, and eventually ended up with about 25 to 30 players who went into training. Now, what is important to realize, and I'll say it from here, that this is a long-term program. NLCB has been grateful enough to sponsor it. And I was happy to actually see them get tested at home at this point. They had been tested with Caribbean teams over in Curacao, but we have always known for a long period of time that that is not the true test of any very good team from Trinidad and Tobago. The true test is when you come up against seasoned teams from the CONCACAF region, like Mexico, like Panama in recent years. And we know in the last 10 years that Venezuela has had a great youth program. So I was happy. I was initially started by just saying I was happy that we got tested so that we could see where we are. I call this a mock exam. We could see where we are, see what we need to do, and from here on in, because this team is now headed to a tournament, and even this tournament that they're going to play next week has nothing really to do with qualification for the World Cup. We won't go into qualification mode for the Under-17 World Cup for at least another year. So we have time to correct the deficiencies, some of which we will talk about today.
Yeah, I just want to add to what the doc is saying in terms of this under-15 team finally having some meaningful opposition to test what their progress has been over the past 18 months or more. Because this team, as the doc says, was selected over or around 2 years ago, specifically to prepare for the long haul. And in their preparation, it would just be local club teams, maybe some of the senior teams, and that little short tournament in Curacao, which they went to. But this one was really for them to see, and for us, the public, the viewing public, to see what type of work was put in by their staff and if it is any progress was being made. So we will drill down into the actual performances during this tournament, but we need to take into consideration the fact that it's a long-term program, and if it is that we've seen any sort of progress out of this program, and if not, what may be some of the solutions that we could suggest to improve the program.
Yes. I mean, for me, I don't think that I was surprised. What would have been, for me, I was expecting to see was a little more in terms of the more team cohesion, having been together for 2 years. What I was very satisfied about, that I did express to the coach and so on, is, the opportunity to test the team against good opposition, right? All the teams participating in the tournament had, very strong youth programs, and they also selecting from, a lot larger pools. So you have, even individually, you have a good test to compare to see where really you are. So I think this will get not just the players, but the staff, right? Stuart Childs, who himself acknowledged and accepted responsibility for the performance of the teams, which I think none of us were really satisfied with. But, he accepted responsibility for that. And I know he's a coach, even if you compare the games, the first 2 games against the last game, and we're not talking results here, we're just talking about the showing of the team. I think there was improvement even within the tournament itself. So I think that the staff has and would be able to learn from tournaments like these, and of course the ones that we're going into, and the players themselves to be tested at a level with their age group at the level that they're going to be coming up against internationally. So again, 2 years, I really think that we should have been further along, but we have an opportunity now to go reassess what was done and make changes where necessary.
For me, it would be simple. I actually think that my disappointment at least came in the form of I wasn't 100% sold on having 3 teams at that level play these guys in a tournament that we are hosting. I think very rare a country would hold a tournament that they more or less, going into it being almost like the whipping horse. I think we should have had 1 team at least that was a little closer in, playing style and proximity to where we are in our program. I think for development reasons, I like that, because the guys here, they were flying high, 2 years, doing a really good job, going out to the Caribbean, having excellent results. And then at home, when it would have been like the first time our fans were actually coming out, the guys were actually going to play in front of a crowd, considering that Trinidad, we haven't had football from our teams in the country. People went out to see it. And to have 3 strong oppositions, I think there's something that could play on the guys in terms of their development mentally. And I think for the fans, we ended up leaving people who don't know the team, I should say, for Doc and, Jefferson and stuff, who have been seeing the team on a regular for a long time. But for the average person who may have come for the first time, I think you're left thinking Trinidad isn't any better than it was 5-10 years ago in that age group. But they are. I think we should have had one team that was a little closer. It also speaks that I think our first team, just like the under-20 guys that went away recently, I think our first team is not bad, but we're seeing that when we go to the bench, the quality is dropping a little lower. I think a lot of players are, just like I said in the under-20, a lot of players are missing who could at least be on the bench to ensure that our bench is still strong. We're going to our, what we consider the B team or the second team and getting, worse results than when the first team plays. I think the first team is pretty strong and maybe the depth of players would have to expand in the future.
Yeah, Narada, I'd like to continue this point. One of the things that we've recognized in Trinidad and Tobago teams over the years is that we can pick at every age group probably about 8 or 9 quality players, and not even full 11, and 8 or 9. And people often ask me, Alvin, why we don't have more? Why we don't have more? A major part of the reason that we don't have more is that our search is not good enough. Right. Our search, when we go into in-depth searching all over Trinidad and Tobago, and we do it in a method that is precise and a way of, we have to have people who could recognize talent that can be molded into something. If we do that, then we pick up a larger portion of players who you can mold into quality players. Because, the main reason, because we are a small island. And we have to admit it, a large percentage of our youth population are not vying to be selected on our national team. They're not vying for selection on our national team. So we even have a smaller proportion of people in Trinidad and Tobago looking to become national footballers than other countries of similar size. In Mexico or Venezuela, if one player doesn't live up to what is expected, they ask for another, and they ask for another. In Trinidad, we cannot afford one top quality player to walk away.
Okay, let's take a break, guys. And when we come back, we will pick up where we left off. Viewers, I'll be right back after the short break.
We all know, you go to Point Fortin, you go to La Brea, you go to Mayaro, you go to Guaya, and there you see players, and when you ask the age, you want to know, how is he not in the pool? Was he seen by this group?
What I can see, the game for me had a lot of positives. It had a lot of positives because that's the first time they played in front of the home crowd, in our home crowd, in front of our home crowd. I knew the news would have been there, they were excited, and you could see that they gave everything they had, which was positive, But I still, the disappointment I have, for me personally, to score 4 goals and loss is difficult. For me, if you score 4 goals, you should be able to win, in my opinion.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Okay, guys, national selection. I want us to look at it from this standpoint. National selection is usually the best players at the positions that's on the field that you get, and sometimes it doesn't always work. The best players fit the mold, but we start with that, and we bring players in and out depending on their form or how good they are doing. But my issue is, if we select 30 players, 15 years old, and we're moving them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, what about the late bloomers? We should have rotation coming in to switch people in and out so we can have the best squad, because the system shouldn't change. players can change, but the system can stay, and we can. So we have the right system going with these players that we interchange in and out. How you feel about that?
I totally agree, Serena. I totally agree. That's a short answer for you. I totally agree. I mean, there's no way, especially as the doc said before the break, we have a declining pool of players to select from. So, I mean, common sense would dictate there should be no closed door policy
Right.
to selecting a team. So that's the short answer. Sorry.
No, I was just going to touch on quickly because I know you all have more technical experience than I do. And it would more or less be to the point that Doc was alluding to. You need persons that could identify players in different stages and forms at certain points. There are people that could go out, see a guy, say, listen, he's pretty quick. You know, he may not be, the technical ability isn't there yet, but you're seeing that with some work it could happen. I think for a period of time we have this, there's a standard, and that is what we look for, to meet the standard, and then we go forward. But football and players come in different forms and styles, and you have to be able to have an open mind. A guy could be there and say, listen, this guy, I'm seeing X, Y, Z quite down this area. We could work with him. And I think that is what is probably missing right now on those teams, on those selection panels.
Yeah, I think, Ofer, you're talking about the system that they choose to do this screening in preparation for the U15 tournament. And the idea that it seems to be select this group of players, 30, 40, or whichever, and then we're going to work with this bunch, exclusive bunch, to move them to an elite level. I think there are some problems that you're going to encounter with that. Firstly, once this group is selected, you then not just the bad persons who are on the outside, but the persons on the inside, because of lack of competition there. Once I rise to the top of that group, then I am no longer going to be challenged by the guys in the pool, right? You're hoping that the guys in the pool itself can provide competition enough to raise the rest of the bunch, right? Now, secondly, you have at that age group, you're talking 12, 13, 14-year-olds, a year is an eternity in terms of development. What I see this year from the person in here would not be the same thing I should see in a year time, right? And that's why I'm saying this process should be a little bit more fluid. And of course, there would be persons who would stay from the time that you start, from the time that you end. If your scouting is good, hopefully you have more who stay in than those who are going in and out. But I think the process has to accommodate persons who, as Steve is saying, not necessarily bloomer, but Doc mentioned our system still does not track properly the players, especially in the far reaches of the country. You know, I think we would say from a technical standpoint, we are doing that, but we all know you go to Point 14, you go to Labre, you go to Mayaro, you go to Guaya, and there you see players, and when you ask the age, you want to know how is he not in the pool? Was he seen by this group? You know, and that is the problem that we are going to experience with a system that was used here. You know, I think that's one thing that we could definitely improve.
Doc, before you start, let me just ask a question, probably more for the clarity of the viewers who may not have the information that we may have. This particular under 15 team, the selection of the squad after the initial screening period, was it that they would close off that particular number of players, whether it be 25 or 26, and no longer would entertain any new recruits? Is that what this was? So just for clarity for the onlookers.
Actually, there was supposed to be two pools of 50 or close to 50. And pool
1 and B.
Pool A was getting coached and whatnot. Pool B was getting coached by their community coaches and would be called back into a group with A and B together, and a new selection process takes place. But unfortunately, because of financial and other reasons, players weren't called back. They were waiting to be called back, and many of them were never called back. Maybe one or two might have been, because I knew Stuart was always open to to the voices in the community of coaches saying, look, this person needs to come in and be seen. And he was seeing people intermittently. But you really needed to have, the whole group being coached again and a new selection process done so that to make sure that you actually have the best players available at that age group. Now, I just want to bring in something here. Because Trinidad and Tobago does not have the kind of professional system that Venezuela and Mexico and even Panama now and Panama's is recent. I feel it's very important that our players are playing football on a regular basis. Because I was always taught when I was growing up that the best coach is the player that you're playing against. Because you have to find a way in your mind as a forward to get past that player or as a defender to stop a good forward. So it's very important. A game is often worth more than 10 practices.
10 sessions, yeah.
All right? So a game is very important, especially if you are playing against tougher opposition. What I'm saying is, in my day, a long time ago, it didn't matter what age you were. You see, to me, age group football in Trinidad and Tobago has caused a problem. Because I would have liked to have seen in recent years some of the top players in their age group play at a higher level. So that 4 or 5 of the under-17s are in the under-20s and playing and trying to make that under-20 side.
Actually trying, yeah.
Trying hard. The under-15s, 3 or 4 of the top players, and we could identify easily the 3 or 4 top players. I would like to have seen them in an under-17 pool and trying to make that under-17 team. And you will see the surprising development that would have taken place with those top players if they move up in age group.
So, hearing all of you guys, what's the solution? We should not have a closure on the pool and keep running people in and out based on form. Is that what we say, form? Or sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't.
You need to close it for a while so that the coach and his staff and whatever resources you have piled up behind the team, you need to close it for a while so that you could coach them perhaps for a 3 to 4 month period, and then you open it back up again.
Yeah, but I think Jefferson, in this particular case, I was made to understand that these guys were prevented from playing any sort of football while they were in this 18-month period. And you all could have to confirm that or not. If that be the case, I can't agree with a format like that simply because in Trinidad, we don't have enough football across the board. That's one. And I agree with the doctor. As a footballer, you need to be playing. You just need to be playing competitive football, right? And secondly, if you want to isolate a particular team for an extended period of time, you have to have support services to support a venture like that. We are not at the stage as a football nation that can do that, right? We can't speak to Mexico. We can't speak to Venezuela. They have those systems in place. They didn't get there overnight. And there's no way that we could just get up and decide we want to adopt part of a program and expect to get the same results that these teams are having when they have a more wholesome support in their particular program. So I don't agree with closing it off. I don't agree from preventing young players from playing. I just don't agree with that.
Yeah, probably a good thing you went before, because I'd use part of that point as well. Now, when we're saying that the players have to play, right, they weren't allowed to for the format of this program, right? Now, if that was going to be, the program itself was going to be the bridge to get the players levels up, to get the players to advance as a team, then there must have been some way for these players to have, real competitive games. Now, I know there was efforts made. They played a couple of the senior teams here. They played some of the under 17s, right? And now, really and truly, they would not have provided the type of real assessment that was needed, particularly playing the senior teams. And I know they have played the police senior team, they played Cunupia, and the reviews were all positive. They lost the games, but we were there and about. And again, I'm saying once you have 15-year-olds playing against senior players, the senior players will not test them sufficiently. I as a senior player always know this is a 14-year-old, this is a 13-year-old, and I am accommodating him. He's a national player as well, right? Now, that to me gives a false sense of development. It gives a false sense of improvement. The team that is below always looks better than it really is because they aren't really tested to the limit. To go back to Doc's point about the playing, that is also going to come or be facilitated by the amount of resources that you have with the team. If you are going to keep them and prevent them from playing in their clubs and their schools where they have tournaments, although the argument here would be the tournaments, the level may be too low, but there is nothing to replace the game time that person would have been able to have. And I think to come up with one solution for it is going to be really difficult. But we have to find a way with the resources or limited resources that we have to allow them to benefit from the training that is being provided by the staff of the national team, and also to have game situation on a regular basis, which will then allow them to transfer what they've learned in the training into the game situation. So I think that has to be the challenge now for them to find a system that works better, because this one definitely lacks some of those components, especially the game time.
Okay, viewers, we'll take a break. When we come back, we will talk about player team statistic that's part of this squad. We'll be right back.
We have a good 13, a good 14. I said we have a good 8. We need to go back and look for players.
All right.
And that was the first thing that I felt that we needed to do. We need to go and scour the country and look for players.
I think after 3 games, we saw the first game. We showed that we had the potential to defeat Panama. We led twice in the game. I'm convinced some people say it's an excuse. It's not an excuse, it's an observation. The goal was an offside goal, And it was an offside goal because after the guy passed the ball in the goal, there were 2 players in an offside position, and these 2 players followed the ball and made sure that none of our defenders could have cleared it out.
Okay, viewers, welcome back. All right, guys, this is what I want to throw on the table. 2 things, right? I want to talk about player team statistic because I've seen police had 6 players, W Connection had 7 players out of the 22 or whatever, and all the rest of the teams like Caledonia, Central FC, Jablote, who won the under 15 for so many years, 1 player. Point Pleasant Civic Center, who won the last season, 1 player. So I've got a problem with that, and maybe you can explain. And then I want us to talk about the staff as well. We have this, if we have this staff running for 2 or 3 years, maybe we might want to shuffle that as well. So I'll let you guys comment on that and tell me how you feel about it. Go ahead,
to start the players, I think one of the problems, you would hear it being said, is that people didn't think that the team reflected, the overall spread of where players are located in Trinidad. I spoke to some persons in Tobago, for example, they thought their representation wasn't the best. Now, obviously, Tobago is smaller than Trinidad. If you have 1 out of 10, it's probably fair, but I don't know. I think people always, believe that there could be 2 or 3 or even 4 players, top quality players in Tobago that could be on the team. And then I think even for Deep South, you weren't seeing a representation that reflected some of the success some of the teams in the southern region had. And, it started to be questioned, is it a case that when finances or things have been changed, the commitment of parents, were they able to continue supporting the kids, making this trek, every day to Couva? And is it that we ended up with players, which is the case that we're hearing from some of the parents, that the players that ended up making the team at the final cut were the set that their parents were able to commit for the last 2 years, every day, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, to carrying the kids there. Is that a true reflection of the best players in Trinidad or just the most committed players in Trinidad? And I think we need more resources to ensure that these players could be there, because then we're seeing, for example, Police FC is located in St. James, that's Port of Spain side. Are the players on Police team coming from Point Fortin, Mayaro that are representing Police, or is it that most of the players are located in the northern region? And that is something that, sometimes we have to find out what is the reason. Is it committed parents or lack of, resources to ensure that it's well represented?
Rather, I like what you're saying, because I've had this idea that we should not look always at the clubs that these players come from. I think, and I said to myself when I was looking at the games, I wonder if we looked at all the areas and looked at the areas where, or the communities where these players came from. And you can see then, if from La Brea you have no players, you could say something is wrong. La Brea always has players of quality. Deep South in Palo Seco, there are no players coming from there. You can look and say there's something wrong. So I feel that it's important that we put the location of where these players come from and not necessarily always the team that they come from. Yeah. Because what is happening now in Trinidad and Tobago, people are trying to align themselves
with the club.
With the clubs that they feel will make their children's chance of selection much easier on the national team. Right. And that is what people are doing. Whether it's something that is truly so or not, we don't know. So the number of these players actually did not initially start off with some of these clubs, but they were drawn into these clubs, because their parents or their guardians or whatnot felt possibly this was a newer challenge, better coaching, better facilities, a more professional environment for them to come in, so that their chances of selection may have been greater.
So how you answer to Jablonais, who won the year before, Civic Center, who won last year, and Civic Center haven't lost no player, no club. And I think Jablonais probably the same, because they have a good program.
I've heard members of the administration say after this tournament, we have a good 13, a good 14. I said, we have a good 8. Right. We need to go back and look for players.
All right.
And that was the first thing that I felt that we needed to do. We need to go and scour the country and look for players. Look for quality players. And I'm not saying that the players are not available and they're not there. And if we just look at a community map of where they come from, it may be easier to see which communities we have left out, particularly Tobago, which has always given us good youth players in the last 15, 20 years. So we have to go and look at which communities have not been looked at properly and find out why their players are not being given the chance as other players. So I think this, looking at the clubs alone, where they come from, is not the true answer.
Larry can help us with that, because look at La Brea. You know everybody in La Brea, and you've dealt with them. Do you have any players in this under 15 team?
No, we don't.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
I think well, it has been explained. Apparently, after the initial selection period where the doc was involved in, after that,
Right.
the scouting of additional players thinned out or was diluted, thinking that the pool that they had acquired would satisfy their needs. But as we know in sports, it's an evolving thing. It's never stagnated. You have to keep moving. You have to keep having people in the communities, like any one of us who sit here, and giving regular updates and say, okay, wait, there's somebody else I'd like you to have a look at.
Right.
And if you have enough eyes and ears in the different communities, chances are, not chances are, it is a given that you would improve and increase not just your pool, but the quality that comes into the pool. But it appears as if this particular set was locked in and secluded and sequestered like a jury so that they could work with what they have. And that would have its benefits, but the downside of that is that you may have eliminated or not given the chance to some really talented youth that could improve the standard of not, well, remember, this is a national team. And you have a tournament coming up here. And this is where the same staff who sequestered the players, they are going to be judged on the performance of the team, and rightly so. That's how it should be. Sure. So I would think that you would want to increase any possible chance you have of bettering your team. And the only how you could do that is to continue to have your eyes and ears in the communities, whether to people you know or whatever it is, and that would capture these talents that would be missed in the initial screening period.
I think just to touch on what Larry said, we always have to remember that the screening period, we have increased it. It's not just a one day. We have been trying, 2-3 weeks. But just to use an example of something that could happen, what about the kid that the particular day or week or month that it was having that screening wasn't able to buy a new boots? His parents was waiting for month end to do it. We have lost him simply because of that. And I use this story because then we hear, when you read about Dwight York's journey, that at a very young age, he didn't even have a pair of boots when people knew he was talented. But people in the community, there were the guys that were looking and could say, that guy, we need to put up some money and send him to that screening. So it really has to be something that is ongoing, but it has to include persons who are on the ground in the communities that could tell you there's a kid who's probably sick today, or this kid who doesn't have this, doesn't have the transport, but he's very talented, playing in some small team somewhere, or just, around. We can't just use always the kids that are coming to us. It's we have to go out to them and reach out.
And also, I want you guys to touch on staff. Do we have the right staff, and should we rotate the staff as well?
Well, I would like to look at staff from a different point of view. I like to look at, first, I look at staff from the point of view of where I thought our deficiencies were.
Okay.
And one of the major deficiencies, and this deficiency is not only with this team.
Junior team, that's really senior.
I've seen with these junior teams and all the way up to the senior teams, our physical preparation is deficient. We are not as well prepared physically at age group level and at senior level. Sometimes it's a little better than others, but overall, we are physically not prepared. And there was no question in my mind that our first 11 could handle themselves for 60 to 70 minutes in these situations. We were leading Panama 3-2, the 65 minutes or 70 minutes. We were 1-1 with Mexico, with the first team there. But the second team players and the players who themselves had started, after 70 minutes, when you are playing against players of in better quality, and you have to run and put out our physical prep. So I feel we have to seriously look at how we can get the best trainer, physical trainer that we have in this country, and if he's not good enough, let us look outside for a trainer of real quality who is accustomed to dealing with youth internationals. And we need to bring them here. Tied up with that, is nutrition. And especially at this age group. Your nutrition, your physical training have to go hand in hand. And hopefully the medical doctors on the program, the physiotherapists, and the medical group are all in one frame of mind, one thought, so that they're banding together. They will evaluate what has happened here so that we could have an improved physical preparation, first of all, for this team here. Coaching, I will go on to my element of what should happen with the coaches after I hear from some of the others.
All right.
I think.
Wait. Let me take a break. When we come back, I will let you come in. Viewers will be right back after a short break.
If you're functioning at about 40% in the field, because of tiredness, wear and tear the muscle, you ain't going to be able to dribble, you're not going to be able to run back, you're not going to be able to cross, and that is what we're seeing happening with our players. They are talented, but the problem is on a field, if Mexico is coming at you at 100 and you have to worry about that, you're probably not going to be able to execute half the things that you're capable of doing. Have we seen it there?
Okay, welcome back, viewers. Okay, Jefferson, you were about to say.
Yes, talking about the staff, as I said, I've seen enough. I think we all would see enough of your child to know his quality. My point in terms of staffing, though, it has to do with a strong support staff, assistant coach, because one person seeing something, he doesn't need somebody to always reinforce what he says. Sometimes you need a different idea, not to oppose the coach, but to present something that he might have missed. And I think, I'm not sure who is operating there at the moment, but there are certain things that was clear. And I mean, Stuarty himself being new, not to the football, but to this age group, which there are some specific things, or a lot of things to be looking at. You need persons who are going to actually be cued in to particular things. I saw in the games where you had the very diminutive players. Yeah, you had the second game where two of them played, and there was a situation, a free kick. One of the centre backs, who's a big boy, went to take it. It was just inside the opposing team's half, and waiting in the box for a ball to be delivered is, I mean, two guys who just about 3 feet tall, waiting for a ball to be delivered from almost a 6 foot centre back. You know, I mean, things like that. It shows really where that side of it is, because when you look at the other teams, tactically they're very strong. The decisions that they're making as individual players, they seem to be strong. And I think one of the things is that in this team, Narada mentioned the teams that were chosen. I think that has to do as well with a lack of general knowledge of the requirement that is necessary for this level. So while Stuarty may have that for a senior level, he knows exactly what the preparation would be like. He knows how to assess a senior player or even a developing player. Then at this level, there was clearly a misrepresentation or a sort of wrong perception of the team that we had. Because if you listen to the projection or what they expected to get from the team, which was passed on to the players, they themselves expected a lot more out of the team. And I think now, having played the games, there's a little more sense of reality as to what they need to do. I believe that Stuarty is capable of turning it around, but I think it's necessary to have a strong staff with him, somebody who can, sometimes give additional information which he can take on board.
Okay, let's pull out some parts of the game that you guys saw, and maybe things we did right and things we did wrong, or teams, how different teams play, whatever, that we can help the kid in their performances.
Well, one of the problems that the coaches had was that they had to give everybody at least 60 minutes in these games. And I thought we should have been a little more, having knowledge of that, we should have been a little more strategic in in choosing our players for game 1 versus game 2, because we seem to send out in game 2 versus Venezuela a much weakened team.
Yeah.
And maybe there could have been a little bit of a balance between game 1 and game 2. And even when in the third game, it was obvious that we had a first team in the third game against Mexico, because the fellas who went on there against Mexico, who started against Mexico, those looked like, for majority of them, those were our best players. So we could have been a little more selective there. But when we're going into this tournament, I thought Stewarty was good in the third game, and by changing players' position. For instance, the captain, Jaheim Marshall, I thought number 6, I thought I've seen him play in the back. He plays well in the back. We tried to play him in defensive midfield. Our back was porous. He went in the back in the next game against Mexico, and he looked a quality player back there. I feel on this team, he should be back there until we find somebody else. And there was some shifting around. Nathaniel James, another one of our outstanding players, I felt he needed to be closer to the goal. He's a fellow who has outstanding individual and dribbling ability. I want those players, and goal scoring ability. His composure under duress is excellent. He needs to be closer to the goal. That's what the game is all about. The game is not looking good in midfield. The game is about putting the ball in the back of the net. He needs to be closer to the goal, either playing as as an out-and-out number 9, or where he played in the Mexico game, playing in a 4-3-3 out on the right side. So we have some outstanding players. Malik Khan, a number of people say he should be somebody that could be brought into the defense as well. But I think he's in midfield. He has shown not only his quality with work rate in the middle of the field, but his goal scoring prowess. And I'd like him to stay there and develop there as well.
I agree with those 3 names, that Doc called. And I even liked one of the diminutive players, the little Borneo guy. I think he's a talented player. He has a good shot. And I think once they work with him in terms of understanding, because these kids are going to go through puberty, physiological changes would happen. But in terms of talent, a very talented kid, he was able to hold up. I saw him in they played a second game against Venezuela with what would have been considered the A team, where they lost 1-0. And they did have a better showing, and I think he even stepped up to some of the bigger guys on Venezuela's team. And I think he's a player to look forward to in the future also.
What position may I played
in that game? He was playing somewhat of a winger, but it's really on the right side of the midfield he was playing. On the left side.
I look at the game, and I find, and it's not only the under 15, all our national teams, we don't get, especially these under 15, they should get time to express themselves. I find we too regimental on, you pick it up and you got to pass it, and let the kids go and enjoy the game. Let them play. This is the time for them to develop. Otherwise, if they don't develop the dribbling skills and even the skills to work things out there on their own, it'll be very difficult when they get older. So let them work it out, and let them go and have fun, and let them express themselves and dribble and do what they have to do. That's how I feel. Because to me, everywhere I go, watch coaches coach. That's why I'm not a big fan of coaches. It's like, if the kid dribble one guy, stop the whistle, blow the whistle, stop. What is this? I didn't grow up that way.
Yeah. No, I think for us, we outside of the dribbling per se, I think what was lacking, if you compare us against the 3 other teams in the tournament, was a general game understanding. So sometimes you're dribbling on number 10, he was very strong in the dribble. He was successful most of the attempted dribbles and stuff like that. But again, dribbling is a part of football that is used to achieve a particular outcome. And I think coaches, when they do decide to stop it, at least the coaches who are wrong, is if you're doing it in the right areas, what is your purpose? Because then we begin to use dribble for dribble's sake, right? And not just one thing. One of the things that stood out to me with the Panamanian team in particular, especially when they played against Mexico, they had a very, very strong game. Tactically, they were very disciplined. I was shocked to see, guys under 15 executing clearly what was a coach's plan because they were sung to it. And at the end of the game, when Mexico thought they would have scored the winner, I saw the goalkeeper take the ball out the net, throw it behind the goal when the referee turned his back. And I looked at that kid and I said, he's under 15. But at that point in time in the game, to be so calm, take the ball, throw it behind the goal, and of course he's buying some time. It was 90th minute maybe. After the game restarted, and I'm thinking, our players, I would like to see us at that level where they begin to, use information and make decisions based on what's happening in the game, and that calls for game understanding. That can only come by playing.
I looked at let's talk about all the big players in the world. What the strengths are individually. There's very few you see, he's so great. The Beckenbauer, way back in the day, where pass hardly dribbled, but today, the great players are the ones who express themselves. And every scout or thing is looking for that. And I tell the players, you guys got to go and express yourself. And that's how you attract this kind of eye, I think. I don't know. I might be wrong.
I think the effectiveness of it.
You must be playing under some kind of tactical organization,
right? Especially
in defensive position. Where you can give that kind of advice is in the attacking third of the field. Surely that's the kind of advice they give your forwards to express themselves. But in midfield, in the middle of the field and in the back, you must have organization and discipline and patience and the ability to use all the elements of how to play good defense. All those qualities of how to play good defense must be easily seen when your team is looked at.
I agree. But we do need some flair.
I think just in closing, for me, it would be, recently I had a discussion which I mentioned before, where one of the biggest reasons, and this is from on the athletic side of Trinidad and Tobago, what they're seeing is that our players are not being able to execute certain things simply because of the fitness. If you're functioning at about 40% in the field, because of tiredness, wear and tear the muscle, you ain't going to be able to dribble, you're not going to be able to run back, you're not going to be able to cross, and that is what we're seeing happening with our players. They are talented, but the problem is on a field, if Mexico is coming at you at 100 and you have to worry about that, you're probably not going to be able to execute half the things that you're capable of doing. And we've seen it there. So these guys, just as even the second Venezuela game, by 60 minutes, everything let up, and we conceded one goal very sloppily. But the problem is that they are not able to hold 90 minutes of fitness. So everything starts to break down from there. If you're holding 40, you're not going to get the performance that you want.
Luckily, in this tournament that we're going to, we'll be seeing next week, they're only playing 70 minutes.
Right.
So our chances in this tournament, especially after our coaches, I think our coaches are going to make changes. I think they're going to make changes in personnel, a little bit of positional rather than player personnel. But the thing that I think our coaches will have a bigger impact on is the fact that they have seen what the standard is now and they know what they're coming up against.
Okay, guys, so our suggestions is don't stop the players from playing year-round. They should play more. We should look at the staff and see if we need to add or take out a few of them. More community scouts for the guys who are listening. Time management and also for player management and time management. And again, game intelligence. That's what we advise you. Thank you for tuning in, viewers. Thank you, ACTN, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you guys so much for helping out. Appreciate you. Facebook page, you can check us out on email address, fieldofdreamtt@gmail.com. You can drop us a line. Show us ended. Go in peace. My name is Steve David. Good night.